Hey there, welcome back to our class notes format. This time it's class notes number 19. And this class wasn't filmed in a regular Bagua class, but it was filmed during an application workshop, Bagua Zhang applications. And in this first workshop, I teach a Bagua Zhang application series, and this is the first one. So in this first one, the most important thing is to understand the basics of distance management on how to engage with a person, how to disengage, and how we do that in the standing, in the middle level, like in a restless position, and when we're down on the floor. And this section here is the part where we manage the distance when lying on the floor with our opponent standing in front of us. Of course, the basic idea is you want to get back to your feet as quickly as possible. If you don't know anything about grappling or jiu-jitsu on the floor, you have nothing to do there. You always want to get back up on your feet. It's a very dangerous position, of course, to lie flat on your back and your opponent is facing you standing, okay, because there's kicks and everything. So always try to get back up on your feet. And since this is still a Bagua Zhang applications workshop, people are not so used to fall on the floor, to roll around on the floor, to move on the floor, and also not necessarily on how to easily get back up on their feet. So we started with a warm-up where we basically practice all the movements that we need when we practice with a partner later, so we can prepare for those movements for ourselves and get used to movement on the floor. So the first exercise is just basically rolling backwards, trying to touch the floor with the toes. This is flexion of the spine. Afterwards, it's extension of the spine, where we did this bridging exercise here. It's something that I like to do in all my ground-based warm-ups, that I go from flexed spine to extended spine into rotations. Okay, so it feels really nice for me to address those basic movement planes, okay, planes of motion on the floor, because I also do that standing in every Bagua class. For me, it's natural to start with moving my spine, moving around my center, and I do that both in standing exercises just as well as on the floor. So this is the rotation of the spine. I try to keep my shoulder flat on the floor, and I basically try to touch my hands with the opposite foot, and I only tilt my hips to the side. I rotate my lower back, the lower spine. This is a super nice exercise which loosens up a lot of tension before you start working on the floor. Yeah, so after that, it's time to get back into the rolling exercise, but now we already prepare the part where we want to safely stand up from the floor and get back to our feet. So roll backwards, try to touch the floor with your toes. And when you sit up, you want to place one foot in front of you. Let's pause here for a second. So this leg here is lying in front of my body, and this front foot here is placed with the just plain on the floor. Okay, always roll back, change sides, and yeah, try to keep your elbows inside. Okay, no matter standing or on the floor, the inside position is what we are looking for. That was a rhyme. Okay, so roll back, sit up comfortably. Okay, so this is pure jiu-jitsu content, but like I said before, this is something I feel everybody has to know and to understand, because there's a very high chance, a very high percentage that if you engage in a physical encounter, it's very high percentage that you go down to the floor either with your opponent or alone. So you always need to understand how to get back up on your feet in a safe fashion. Okay, so here's the thing. You sit down, you have one hand in front of you for distance management and to protect your face, and you have one hand placed behind your back. The basic idea here is, if someone pushes into my hand, I can resist that push through this post behind my back, okay? And if I now want to stand up, I push into my front leg, this lifts my hip, and I can step backwards with this rear leg, and I step behind my arm. Okay, so push into the floor, lift the leg, and place your foot behind your arm. And only if you put your foot on the floor, then you can let go of this post, because this post now does the work of this one, and you can get up and stand up in a safe fashion. Okay, this will come, or we'll talk about that later in this video when we see how it's actually applied with a partner standing in front of you. But this is the basic exercise, and it's very important. Okay, so push into the front leg, lift your hip, step back, and try to put your foot, your back foot, on the floor before you finally lift the hand, this post here, and stand up, moving backwards. Okay, so that's this exercise. All right, now we do the same thing with a small break fall. You stand up, you fall backwards, boom, you break the fall. Now you roll forwards, same position, push into the front leg, post your hand. Now this foot steps behind my arm, boom, and now I can move backwards and get up on my feet in a safe fashion. Break fall, rolling forwards, stepping, moving back. Okay, so that's the exercise. I recommend to do that like for a couple of weeks, like twice a week, 3 times a week, and get your repetitions in. It's basic, okay, but like every basic move, you still have to drill it, so you don't have to think about it, and become really efficient with the move. Okay, so next thing here is understanding how to put your feet, or how to put your legs. So the idea is, I always want to lift my feet. My feet are my guard. They guard me against an incoming opponent. So my opponent is standing in front of me, and since this is the case, I want to be able to see my opponent through my knees and through my feet. So my knees, you can't see that from this perspective here, are opened but not too wide, so the opponent could easily pass through, and they are not close together because the opponent could then just tilt my hip to the side very easily. Okay, so bring up your feet, open your legs gently, and this is the basic position. Now you always want to lift up your head. Okay, just imagine you're not in a dojo, you don't have tatami mats, you don't want your head to rub the floor and to bruise your head. Always lift your head. This engages your core, this activates your abdominals, and with that tension here, you will be able to move much more efficient. Now, my triceps is on the floor. This is because now when I move around and I turn in this position, I have more stability, so it's harder for me to fall over, and it's easier to maintain my solid defensive mechanisms here, my structures. Okay, so don't try to move on your elbows. Obviously, this is painful. If you do that successfully for a minute on hard floor, you are doomed to have a lot of pain. So put your triceps on the floor, because now you can also have your hands up, and this is your guard with your feet here. You can manage the distance and defend yourself both with your feet but also with your hands. Okay, so always the full triceps area on the floor. Now we have to move our hips and our shoulders in order to move around. Okay, so try this exercise. This is pretty hard if you've never done that before. Try to move quickly, turn from one side to the other like a turtle. Okay, so another thing that I mentioned before is you don't want to use your arms basically in order to turn around. Your elbows need to stay glued to your ribs. You don't want to flare your elbows, neither in a standing position nor on the floor. Keep them tight. You always want to protect your ribs. You don't want your opponent to get a chance for an underhook, to get more control. So use your arms, but keep your elbows tight. Okay, so this is important. Don't use your arms in order to turn around. This is not only painful, but it also opens up chances for your opponent to grab a hold on your body. Okay, so now the exercise. Again, this is a nice warm-up drill. Go down with a break fall, turn 1, around and then get up, and do that on both sides, left and right, left and right. Do it for 2 minutes straight and you'll have a nice warm-up. So now the same thing with a partner. My partner is standing in front of me, pushing me down. I do my break fall thing. I put up my hands, I put up my feet, and now he starts moving around and I have to follow. My goal here is to always have my feet in between my head and my opponent, and I have to be quick enough to follow him to always maintain this safe position. And now I stand up and move into a safe distance. So here's the thing, I turn, you can't really see that, the camera angle is pretty bad. I move around like once, I move around twice, change directions, and at some point I basically just stop, move backwards, so he will see the opportunity to stand up back on his feet. Okay, that's the next exercise. Now, here comes the thing. We have 3 distances when we're working on the floor. The first distance is this one here. My partner is moving really close. He's moving so close that I can touch his body with my feet without extending my legs. This is important, very important concept. So you can put your feet on the hips, you can put the feet on the knees, you can put the feet on the inside of the thighs, no problem. The only rule here is that you don't want to extend your feet in order to search for the body of your opponent, okay? You can also hook like I demonstrate here, okay? So if he leans in, I can protect myself. I can use my legs as a guard, as a protective shield, so to say. And now if he moves away, I see the chance to sit up. You know, sitting up is the second level. The first one is lying straight and flat on the floor. Now your opponent disengages just slightly. This is your chance to sit up. Protect your face with your hand in front of you. And now we're in the same position that we've practiced in the solo drills. Okay, so when he moves closer, I can't stand, or I can't keep sitting. I have to fall back on my back and move my feet to touch my opponent. But if he moves away, I will see the chance to sit up. Now, if he moves away even further, this is my chance to get back on my feet. Okay, so 3 distances. 1, really close. You have to go back and lie on your back. Put your feet on your opponent. The second distance, he moves away just a little bit. This is your chance to sit up. And third distance, he moves away even further. This is your chance to get back up on your feet. Okay, and this is something you can practice really nicely in also in warm-up drills. So here, again, what I'm talking about here is another important thing. When he places his feet on my body, he is able to defend himself. Then I move back, you know, he can sit up safely. But if I move back and I close the distance, he also has to fall back and lie back on the floor again. Now, if I step further away, he can stand up. And always stand up, moving backwards. Okay, so here comes the drill. He pushes me over, I fall. Now he starts moving away again. I can sit up. And here, when he moves to one side, I always want my chest to face his chest. Okay, so when he moves into this direction, I keep my chest facing his body. Important, okay? So as long as he moves in this direction, I will keep it. But if he changes the direction, I can't simply keep this position, because after a while he will be quicker than me and he will end up in my back, which is something you absolutely want to avoid. So if I'm sitting and he moves into, let's see, in this direction, I move like that. But if he changes the direction, he moves in, I put my feet on his body, but now he changes the direction. Now I also have to change my sitting position. Okay, otherwise he would move into my back. So this is what you do. You change to the other side. So my chest is facing my opponent again. Okay, always change from one butt cheek to the other. In this sitting position, you can not only turn, but you can also move backwards in order to change or to manage the distance, or pull yourself closer to your opponent. So you can move to the sides just as well as you can move forwards and backwards. Okay, try to manage the distance, and when your opponent is too close, go back to your back, put your feet up, and when you see the chance and the right distance to get back on your feet, step back and get up. Okay, so here I'm talking about a common mistake, and this is when you are in touch with your opponent, like my partner here. He is putting his feet on my body, and now when I move away, the mistake is that he tries to follow my body with his feet and extends his legs much further than he should. So if I move away, the only thing he needs to do is to keep his legs where they are. And there is the golden rule of the knee line and the hip line. We will talk about that in a minute. So if I move closer, he can't search for my hips, because when he extends his legs basically become super heavy. Okay? Here, when I pull his legs, or he tries to look for the contact on my body, and he extends his legs, the legs become really heavy, and he has to hold them up with his abdominals. The other thing is, or the problem here is, that I, as a standing opponent, can just easily shove the legs away to the side, and he has no manner, no way to defend the incoming opponent. Okay, so try to maintain the position when your partner moves back, and the golden rule here is you always want to keep your knee line behind your hip line, or at least in the same line, but it's already quite weak. So if you keep your knee line behind your hip line, like he does here, I cannot easily pull on his legs, because when I pull on his legs, his abdominals will be activated and he will move with the pull. But as soon as the knee line opens further, then it's super easy for me to pull his legs down or shove them to the side, like I demonstrated before. Okay, so always keep your knees behind your knee line. And now when I pull on the feet, you see how his whole body reacts to my pull. This is a much safer, a much stronger position. So the basic idea is, when your standing opponent moves away, don't follow with your feet, but sit up. This is what he does here. He sits up, I move closer, he keeps his legs where they are until I move in. And now, since I moved in, he can put his feet on my body. Now again, I leave, and he does not extend his feet. But now he could easily sit up. Okay? So, again, same exercise. He moves in, I keep my knees behind my hips. I can defend myself, but I don't search for his hips and search for contact. Only if he moves in close, I do that. But if he moves into a distance, I don't follow with my feet, but I sit up in order to prepare my stand-up. Okay, and now I see the distance here is big enough, it's safe enough, and now I get back on my feet. Okay, I can kick to the shin just to manage the distance, get him, push him away, and then stand up. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this classroom session here. This is the drill. You work with your partner, he moves around, and you can place your feet on the body of your partner. You can hook into the to the knees, okay, because you don't actually have to do all the work by yourself. You can really use the movement of your opponent and the contact with your feet in order to move with your partner through, for example, through this hook here. I hook his leg and he moves around, so I don't have to do anything to keep my feet in between my opponent and my head. Okay, very simple. The only thing you need to understand is, even if you are using your partner's movement here, don't extend your legs. Okay, so your knee line has to stay behind your hip line. And if he moves away, first, sit up, second, stand up. Okay? But the knees stay behind the hip line. Okay, so he disengages and I can get up back on my feet. Okay, one more time, the whole drill. This is how you should practice. So I move around, I play with the distance. I'm his coach now. I'm moving and he has to do the proper thing. I move in, he can touch. He can find connection. Now I disengage, he can sit up, I move around, he has to change his position. I move in again, he has to bring up his foot again, or his feet again, look for touch, look for connection. Now when I move out, he can sit back again, and after a while I just step back and he can see the chance to finally get back up on his feet. Okay, so that was the whole sequence of distance management on the floor. Please practice this. It's actually a lot of fun. It's a great warm-up. Yeah, it's a perfect warm-up for you to understand how to get back up on your feet in a safe fashion. Okay, so this was class notes number 19, and well, see you next week.